Woo! Welcome. How not to be an asshole. Back again in your life. Dan Morbury's had a bad fucking virtual reality trip. He's not going to be the same again, folks. But it doesn't matter because we're going strong. He can still use his thumb to press record on the fucking thing, and that's all we need him for.
Episode 16. Welcome back.
Episode fucking 2021.
Hey, do you know what hasn't happened in the last couple of weeks?
What's that?
Or at least the last week. We haven't had a new Patreon sign up.
No new patrons.
Have we not been pushing it hard enough?
Join the Patreon. You can listen to things. You'll be supporting us, supporting Dan. Obviously, after the virtual reality bad trip, things aren't going so well for Dan. He needs a lot of support, and it's cost money. So
and it's a real good time to do it. We're due a bonus episode this week, right?
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, have you got some questions?
Yeah. So we need a name.
Questions in.
We need a name for the bonus episode where we get listener feedback and questions and that sort of shit.
What's your
a good
fucking
name?
problem?
Okay. What's your fucking problem bonus episode coming this week? So there's never been a more opportune time to sign up to the Patreon and get a question in and find out about the intimate details of Dan's sex life.
Dan's virtual reality trips.
Yeah, just anything. But we do have some good questions.
One and the same.
Fucking Dan astral traveling. Dan might be astral traveling to your house for all you know. So get in there. Find out where Dan's been going on his astral travels.
Can I astral travel? Because I'm in a stage 3 lockdown.
No, it's just Dan.
Strictly
Dan could teach you how to do it. It's really dangerous. So a lot of people that astral travel die or they get stuck between dimensions.
Really?
Maybe that's what's happened to Dan.
I've lost heaps of good mates that way.
Yeah.
I've met some of your mates. I wouldn't be surprised if they were stuck between dimensions.
Where have you met my mates?
At your house. Where else would I fucking meet them? They're not just out. They're not out mingling with the regular public.
True.
Regular folk.
Yeah, strange characters from the fucking Nelson region or.
My friends are lovely.
Sometimes, maybe you met some of them when you're having that DMT experience, Todd.
Yeah, probably.
Oh shit, here's all Dan's mates. We've been stuck here for years, Todd. Get us out of here.
Why is there a guy on my DMT trip wearing a Nelson t-shirt?
Oh yeah, that's my mate. I know the guy.
Yeah, you know him.
Nelson t-shirt.
Unfortunately, not much has come across my desk this week.
Oh no.
Yeah, gutted, eh?
You finally got a desk and there's nothing happening.
Nah.
Nothing passing across it.
Later, Todd Muller. Oh, I boxed Louis today for 10 rounds.
How'd that go?
We haven't done that since the beginning of the year. And since the beginning of the year, Louis lost fucking 10 kg and he's like in the best shape of his life. Whereas
So did he toes you up?
He hit me a few times pretty hard. Yeah. You probably can't see it. There's a little bruise on my nose.
I would hate to have a physical altercation with Louis.
Man, he's like a proper athlete. Like
He's strong, athletic, got a
big.
decent amount of rage in his heart.
Yeah.
He's very handsome too.
He seems really nice, but like he also loves violence.
Yeah.
So shout out to Louis.
What's your step, Dan? We should get Louis back on the podcast.
Yeah, we should actually.
Maybe that could be a bonus episode.
Yeah. All right. We'll get him on. We'll bring him in. Maybe we could bring him in for this bonus. So if you have any questions for Louis Tuyasau of At Peace, just drop them in the Patreon inbox once you sign up for that.
The next 3 $10 patrons, Louis Tui will strike anyone in the Melbourne area of your choice.
Did you see he earlier this year he made a song about meth?
No.
So it was like
how good it is.
Yeah, it was a pro meth song.
So many more of those.
And he
Meth's been getting a fucking bad rap, especially with Dan. Now Dan's changed camps.
Yeah,
He's
but it was like
meth for astral traveling.
So it was kind of like a funny throwaway song he just put on SoundCloud, and he took it down because heaps of people messaged him real angry.
Like, why are you making fun of meth, bro?
No, not like avid meth users pissed off about his kind of, opt-in, opt-out attitude. More
to meth use.
Yeah, more people who are like, you gotta be responsible.
Who are these people?
I don't know, fucking uptight cunts.
He should not listen to those people.
Maybe if... Okay, so here's a
Do you
deal.
know what I do when those things happen to me?
Tell them,
block them.
Give. Yeah,
I talk shit about them to everyone.
on your podcast.
On my podcast, in person, in my poems. What I like to do is block someone and I'll talk shit about them at one of my shows. So you should talk to Louis about that.
Yeah. It's a good feeling being on stage at a show and being like, hey, I've got the microphone here,
Hey,
buddy.
this fucking loser fucking told me off and told me to stop using meth.
So here's a promise I don't know if I can come through with, but sign up to the Patreon. We'll get Louis on the bonus episode this week, and then we'll put his meth song at the end of the episode.
Yeah, sweet.
All good?
And maybe, yeah, no, that sounds good. I was going to say something about Dan smoking meth, but we've beaten that horse to death.
Yeah. That horse is well dead.
Oh, Dan, come on. Come on, Dan. Pull yourself together. For
Are
the
you
listeners,
alright?
Dan just put his head in his hands.
Yeah. I just wanted to take a moment to thank our listeners for listening.
All right, Dan, play the fucking music. Welcome back. A little bit older, a little bit uglier.
We couldn't get another producer, so Dan's back as well.
Look at this, Dan.
We can divulge all this now.
This is what Todd's been itching to get into.
I don't necessarily like him, but I respected him.
Well, everyone needs jewelry.
He's a maniac.
Further to him crippled.
This is an audio podcast, Dom.
Sure. What do you think, Dan?
This week's guest is Ricardo Menendez-March. He is the 10th list Green MP, NZ Greens, for the Maungakiki seat. He also is a coordinator at SSRE, Auckland Action Against Poverty. And I couldn't think of a good term, but you're kind of like a poverty activist of sorts. Do you have a better term?
I mean, I'm not a fan of titles, but I do work on welfare, housing, immigration, whatever you want to call it. News Hub likes to say anti-poverty campaigner, which is weird.
Oh, yeah. Because poverty...
Kind of implies that your rivals are like pro-poverty.
Well...
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of are. Some of them, perhaps. What about? I didn't do a big dig today. But do you have some portfolios with the Green Party? The ones
so as a non-MP candidate, technically I'm not a parliamentary portfolio holder, but my work in the Greens and outside of the Greens has mostly been on welfare, housing, and immigration reform. So those three things have been my sort of key political topics that I've worked in general.
Yeah.
And I've kind of always been quite clear that my work in the Greens and outside of the Greens is like one of the same for me in terms of the work I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a very direct connection there through your work with SSRE, which our new guests may not be familiar with, but we've spoken with people from SSRE before on the podcast back in the day. But perhaps, do you want to give people a little rundown of what SSRE actually do?
Yeah, for sure. So Auckland Action Against Poverty is a political organization that has been fighting for welfare reform since 2010. And we were created as a response to the national government of the time, who was promising and did end up introducing a lot of sanctions for beneficiaries and just really punitive culture at work and income. And SSRE's done direct action activities such as blockading national party conferences or the Young Nats balls, as well as successfully lobbying government to end sanctions to single mothers. And we do advocacy on a day-to-day basis to help people get their entitlements at work and income. So that's a very short and summarized.
Yeah.
And so we're made up predominantly of people on the benefit, which I think is kind of like a really key thing. And everybody at SSRE has a lived experience of being in low incomes or being on the benefit. And I think that separates us perhaps from the work that more charity-led organizations do, if that makes sense, that we're sort of political and it's people with lived experience who are part of it.
Yeah, that's real amazing, because I think so often what is frustrating about politics or organizations and political fields is there's not much at stake for the active participants or people, like, and I know it becomes increasingly dismaying because I think I'm becoming more aware of it, and more I'm seeing is like, oh, this shit doesn't actually matter to a lot of people who, for career reasons or political reasons, it's good, it's fitting for them to have it appear as though it matters to them. But when it really comes down to it, I just feel like, yeah, that passion comes from having skin in the game or something at stake, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I've been reflecting a lot today on Twitter, particularly with the Topmoller's resignation, just about how a lot of people treat politics as a game or like a bit of a sport. And like that kind of culture that I think is becoming more and more commonplace in Aotearoa, where it's like very common in the US, means that we become quite disconnected about the impact that political decisions have on us. And so it may not even be that like it has to affect you directly, but you may be connected to other people's sort of lived experiences to understand that decisions made by people in power matter. But when we treat it as a bit of a sport, as a bit of a like, who's winning, who's losing, as opposed to what are the issues, it's so easy to just, completely detach yourself from why politics matters. Not just elections, but politics in general.
Yeah.
I think when someone calls themselves a pragmatist, that's usually a good indication that person doesn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm just a pragmatist, man. I see both sides of it, and it's just like, whereas, like when you're on the benefit or you're in low wage income, like you don't have the option to be pragmatic because you're just trying to survive.
No, there's nothing practical about fucking just, I know, worrying about eating or paying bills is...
Yeah, and there's definitely those buzzwords often by like those like people that really preach this whole idea that, you got to have these rational debates without any emotion. And it's kind of like, like you don't have any skin in the game. And people forget that, political decisions will have a massive impact on them. And so like you can't kind of be playing devil's advocate if you're kind of got any skin in the game, because then it's not some sort of like board game where you're kind of just playing almost like a Sims game, right? It's actually, you're in a fight for power, and power at the moment is not held by most of us. It's held by very, very few individuals who are actually sort of making decisions that massively impact how much we get to eat, how much we get to have in terms of goods and commodities.
Yeah, well, it's an extremely privileged position to take, to say, oh, we should leave emotion out of politics, because what that tells me about people that say that is like, oh, it's not too important to you, it doesn't matter that much. But to people that it really matters to, there's going to be emotion and passion. Sometimes you're going to be really fucking angry, sometimes you're going to be really sad, and the idea that people won't respond to that positively is strange to me, because I like to see passion out of politicians. I want to see people saying things that they fucking mean. And
like the whole dismissal, I find, particularly in New Zealand politics, this genuine almost invalidation of like feelings of anger and frustration, and like you often get dismissed for being quite emotional when you talk about issues that you deeply care about. And I find that often that invalidation of anger is like a really good way to silence like marginalized groups from being in politics, because it's often those groups that will actually feel really bloody angry about low benefit levels, about the scapegoating of migrant communities. And like I've definitely felt that, like when I've gotten angry at people in power, like it's kind of that sort of weapon of, in my case, it's the angry Latino card that is like brought on me. So like it's this idea that like, oh, Ricardo's just like playing on the like trope of like being an angry Latin American and just being like fire, they use him all fiery, and I think that you're kind of like, well, it's just really valid anger that I have over these injustices, and like I may express them in different ways. It may not be through like just really outright rage, but it's a useful way to sort of dismiss people's experiences, people's sort of connection to the issues. And it means that, and people kind of think that you can just treat politics as like some uni student debate where it's just, who gets to throw the best argument around, and forget that it actually, political decisions are different between some people literally surviving.
Yeah.
I think there's the other thing though as well that I've noticed with people even on, I guess, on the left, where they're like, people, I guess, that are less educated, and they're like, oh, but I'm not political. Like, I don't understand how the parliamentary system works, or I don't understand, they might even understand how MMP works, and I guess, like, not really getting that, that politics is not just that. It's just like everything in your life, everything you do is political. Is something I've really noticed as well, and sort of, having explained that to people, like it's like, like, just because you don't understand how MMP works, but like the fucking fact that, that you're stuck in this job, even though you're like, minimum wage job, even though you're super smart, or the fact that, you're like third generation beneficiary kind of thing, that in itself is political.
Yeah, and I would say that, often I think we put the onus on low-income communities or disenfranchised communities to say, well, you should, like, that they don't care, and often, like, this whole idea that, like, there's also disconnect. But I found, especially in the AAAP, that some of the most political conversations are with those people that say that they're not political, because it's actually once you start discussing where they stand on whether people should get more incomes, and then they say, like, benefits should increase, and it's like that already is a very political statement, right? But I think that like parliamentarians and politicians have kind of created this atmosphere where if you're not engaging on political issues in this like super intellectualized kind of way, that like you just cannot engage. And it's not to say that there's no space for that. It's just to kind of say that I think the like ivory tower of politics has made a lot of people feel like they're not political, and they're actually really, really, really political. I mean, for me, somebody stepping into AAAP is a political act in itself. You're kind of stepping into a place that has a bunch of signs and posters, criticizing the institution of the police, criticizing work and income. You're kind of entering a space where we're kind of telling people that some of the lies that they've had to make to wins are a result of the system, and like that, that in itself is massively political, even if people don't think of it. And so I always think of the onus of me as a person, a politician, quote unquote, to make sure that like that bridge is created. Because I hear you that it's just really frustrating when people hear others say that they're not political, especially.
And I think it obviously benefits those in power, right? It benefits the status quo to have these people, because when you're poor, like, you can't help but be political in your day-to-day life. Is it's to say that you're not political, to do to live a life that's not political. I mean, that's a privilege of the bourgeoisie. You know what I mean? It's not like when you're poor. Yeah.
Well, the degree to which you feel political is most often directly related to what your political platform is, and there's a reason why people are disenfranchised and may not feel very political, because they don't have a voice, and they will have heaps of political opinions, but it's just like, if I'm just like talking to my friend in the same position as me, that people feel very unheard, so therefore feel non-political, because I guess the idea of politics is change, or making things better, but if you feel powerless within that system, then you're not going to feel very political.
For sure. And a colleague of mine from the Koreans, Lourdes Vano, I really liked an interview she did when she announced her candidacy, and what she said was that she said she was an 18-year-old turning 19 when she did the interview, and she kind of said, my qualifications is that I care. And like, I really loved it, because it was kind of like this whole idea of like, actually, I don't need to dress up in a suit or like show you that I've went to Oxford or that I've got like a PhD in A, B, or C topic to be political. It's like the fact that I care is a political act, and often that's kind of like not thought of as enough. And so like, people in power, like you've said, use that as a tool to create barriers for people to feel like they're part of a wider political machine. And so I really always remember that interview at Lourdes Vano, when she kind of really challenged those notions of who gets to be political. As a young, she's a young Pacifica candidate from Manurewa, and I thought that was like such a great thing to say.
Yeah, and it's an incredible statement. We discovered before that Dan's actually your constituent.
Yeah, I live in Onehunga.
Ricardo. Yeah, he's willing to offer like any sort of services to the campaign that you might need.
Well, do you know where the first union building is?
Yep.
We kind of use that every Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. To do campaigning. So you should pop in and say hello.
It's like 2 minutes walk from your house, Dan.
Yeah. Yes. No.
That's where Jared works.
Yeah, you should go around there, Dan.
I don't think Jared will let me go around there.
Really?
Why not?
You know what happened with Jared.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
We won't get into that.
So, Dom,
8th time.
Dom, you performed at the AAAP action at the Nat Party debutante ball, eh?
Mm-hmm. That's where I did the John. I wrote the John Key Sons of DJ poem for that.
Oh yeah.
For that protest.
The Young Nats.
That wasn't the Young Nats. That was the National Party. Like they were having a celebration of, I don't know what the fuck it was, like some kind of party.
Was it like a gaudy celebration of opulence?
Well, it was quite depressing. It was in this like really shitty thing down by the waterfront.
That's like.
Were you there, Ricardo? It was like in 2016.
That would have been before it was just as I was actually getting outwardly political in general. I mean, I missed all of those fun AAAP interactions because it wasn't until about 2015 that I kind of actually, or 2014 when I first got the right to vote here, and I was already 24, that I kind of started sort of like engaging in political stuff here and kind of owning that.
Sure.
So no, but I look back at those pictures from AAAP and all that, the argy-bargy with a lot of envy because kind of stuff that I think was really important, especially at the time, to challenge what National was doing.
It's interesting, John Key was surrounded by his security detail, which they were all like guys that were like really short but really wide. Like they were as wide as they were tall, and just so aggressive. And I called him a fucking scumbag, and then one of them saw me and was like doing a beeline towards me, and I was sort of like backing up, and then he sort of like managed to run. Oh, yeah. And then I did what's that?
I was just gonna say you were being hysterical and emotional.
I was enjoying it until that guy started chasing me, and I was like, I don't want this fucking maniac to get his hands on me.
This brings us to a good point, which we maybe should have covered first, Ricardo, is how did you end up here? So, your family immigrated from Mexico, is that correct?
No, so I actually came here on my own when I was 18 to New Zealand as a student originally. So that was kind of the idea was for me to kind of, in a very kind of first generation, eldest in the family, from the border, kind of migrant journey. So I actually came to study. I ended up dropping out because I couldn't afford the international student fees. And then I ended up working in hospo for a good 7 years. Got my residency halfway through that, and then I went back to study. But by then it was just like I was in overdrafts and like a lot of debt just from like those years while I was on a temporary visa. And so, like that, like I definitely had a very sort of like precarious migrant experience coming here on my own when I was 18 for those first few years.
So you're like about 40 then. You don't look a day over 29.
I'm 32, thank you.
Yeah.
But, but I do like to, qualify as a youth when I can.
Amongst us, you are certainly a youth.
Yeah.
Love it.
So from uni to hospo, how'd you end up with AAAP?
So I kind of went through so I got involved in the Greens in 2014 as a volunteer, just out of pure coincidence that I knew somebody from work that was doing volunteering for the Greens. And I by then had already kind of decided that it was the party I was most aligned with. And eventually, fast forward a few years to 2017, I when I first stood as a candidate, I got to meet people in AAAP when they launched the Not Enough Left campaign, which was like a demand for all politicians to sign up to welfare tax, housing reform. And through the work Matidia was doing at the time, I kind of connected with a lot of people from AAAP who I already knew some of them through like, you know, the Auckland scene is very small. So I met those people at AAAP, and then after the election, I kind of got more involved and became the coordinator. But it was through that kind of work that Matidia was doing during the election around welfare that I came across people from AAAP. Before that, I was mostly focusing on immigration issues.
Yeah, right. So, I was giving you some space, Dom.
What's that? I've got really bad sinuses scratching my eyes.
Okay.
Are you all right, Dan? You look a bit forlorn.
No, I'm all right.
You sound forlorn. Are you stressed out about going to First Union, Jared choking you out? So, Ricardo, we all used to be in a rap crew when we were younger men. And the guy that's sort of, the head of the crew was into jiu-jitsu. And one time he had to choke Dan out. And things were never really the same. Well, that's what Jared says. And things have never really been the same since. Hence Dan's reluctance to go to First Union. But Dan, I think you should just suck it up and go there.
He didn't have to choke him as like a matter of self-defense. It was more a matter of principle.
We're just putting Dan in line. Do you know that Dan could actually help you guys with any recording, like sound stuff?
I love it. I mean, I won't get into the interpersonal union and people relations, but I would love I would love, yeah, absolutely. You know, we love volunteers. I love people bringing their skills. So yeah, by all means, we'd love to see you at the first office at some point. We can check if you're going to bump into your mate.
You hear that, Dan?
I can ask.
I'd need verified protection.
You're literally a stone's throw from them.
I know.
And he it's shame it's not there anymore, but the national candidate's office used to be directly across from his house. Yeah. So he also could have done some espionage for you.
Some spying.
Yeah. So you were with the Greens first before you got into AAAP. I was saying before we started recording that it was almost serendipitous that on this day we had you on the podcast. What the fuck's Dom doing?
I'm trying to turn this thing off because it's making like loud vibrating noise.
Okay, it looks like some weird like arty music video. You're like gonna murder someone. I'm sorry. Oh, now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, okay, yeah. So having you on today, the day Todd Muller resigns, and I got real fucked off because I saw a bunch of people talking about, you should care about Todd Muller's mental health.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
Yeah.
I was driving down to Raglan and I was like, 100% Todd's going to talk about this.
But so, I'll break it down like this, right? The National Party, the anti-union party, the anti-increasing minimum wage, anti-workers' rights party, and you want me to feel sorry for Todd Muller because his job is hard. I'm sorry. I cannot spare that sympathy for Todd Muller. But and just like if you've ever been around people who suffer under national style of politics and like their everyday struggles, if you've been close to that, the mental duress and stress and like mental health pandemics in poor communities, then I don't know how you can spare a thought for Todd Muller at this moment. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of...
You have to be a bit kinder than me.
No, but... all I would say is that, what made Todd Muller, and just more broadly the National Party, not fit to govern and is their awful politics, is the fact that, like you say, they've have been implementing reforms that have made life for a lot of communities a lot harder, for people suffering from or living through ill mental health a lot harder. And it's not so much that Todd Muller's own ill mental health made him unsuitable to be a party leader or a politician. And I think that's really important, though, to mention, because I think a lot of people have been poking. I really think of those screenshots that people grab from some of his live interviews in The Breakfast Show when he looks clearly distressed, and kind of people saying, oh, this is why he's not suitable to be a party leader. And I'm like, actually, it's his awful politics. And like, the less we focus on his awful views and ideologies in politics, the more actually we're taking away from the fact that, yeah, he hates poor people. He doesn't really, he may claim he believes in climate change, but he's dooming us to a cooked planet. And we actually risk playing to the idea that people with ill mental health don't belong in politics by kind of focusing on the fact that his own ill mental health was the reason why he should have not been a party leader.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and so I just think we should focus on the fact that, yeah, his politics were shit. And like, there's no other way around it. Like, and he caused a lot of harm, and his party caused a lot of harm to people, who are experiencing ill mental health. And I agree with you, Todd, that like, we shouldn't fall into the whole being cordial and sort of polite about how we criticize politicians. But I do think we shouldn't kind of also tell the people who are going through ill mental health that like, that's the reason why they shouldn't be in politics.
Yeah.
Because it so often happens. But it's not about being kind to Todd. It's just it's just about focusing on the actual sort of like the actual faults that he has, which is that he's just an awful politician.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird how there's this rise in kind of like people saying, yeah, you got to be cordial, you got to be nice, like this niceness, while like politically and I think even like on a more social level, things are getting feel like more and more ruthless, like whether it's with cancel culture or whether it's even with the policies of, the Labour government, even, like refusing to raise, benefit rates and all that kind of stuff. But then there's this thing, but everyone's got to be nice.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about it on the podcast before, but the difference between kindness and niceness, you can be kind to someone and that might be being quite brutal sometimes or being quite, brutally honest. But this kind of niceness is like this middle class kind of fucking bullshit that's really become really pervasive lately.
Yeah, hard out. And I think like, if I'm expected to afford respectability and politeness to these politicians, where is their respectability and where's their kindness and compassion? And like the impact of me doing a nasty tweet that Todd Muller doesn't even see is like, I don't know, like a piss in the ocean, whereas their lack of empathy, kindness and compassion actually impacts many lives. It's way out.
I think and I think all of this, like you mentioned, can be in a vacuum. Like people who have power, like those who hold institutional power, like their kindness matters and also their callousness matters. Whereas, like you say, a more callous tweet rightfully criticizing a politician for not caring about low-income people is quite different. It doesn't carry that's not violence. If you're not making a gendered or racialized attack, like it's not actual violence to be angry at a politician, to not be nice to a politician because they're basically making people homeless. And I would also say that, at the end, one of the things I've said a lot in AAAP is that, people also, on the other hand, cannot eat kindness. Kindness actually only goes so far in the political rhetoric and the political discourse. I agree that politicians should role model the sort of behavior that we want to see in politics, but at the end of the day, without those, and this is why I always bring back to what is actually political, if they're not going to make those reforms and bring about higher incomes and, public housing for all and all those things, then kindness actually doesn't matter, because denying those people those things is a form of violence in itself. Kind of like when work and income staffers tell you can't have a food grant, but they tell you with a smile as opposed to with a frown. It doesn't matter. It's still telling you you're not going to eat.
Yeah, you're not going to be mates with your caseworker, work and income.
Well, that was one of the reforms they said, right? They were like, "Oh, we've retrained the case managers to be more polite and to be more, and it's like,
and that's great. Are they going to give me a food grant? Which brings us to an interesting point, Ricardo. Have things changed much for beneficiaries and poor people under a Labour government?
Not fast enough or nearly enough as they should. And I think the reforms that we've had been the result of grassroots campaigners such as people at Auckland Action Against Poverty and other groups are, things like sanctions, removing sanctions on others. But, the truth is that people are still getting money for basic things such as food grants. Incomes are still below the poverty line. And like the most frustrating thing has been that, how many more reports, the government's had reports, the government's had beneficiaries speaking out on this, the government's had the economists, charity groups. It's like, how many more people need to tell you that we need an overhaul of the welfare system for them to listen? Like at this point, it's not about whether we have evidence or whether we have people with lived experiences like saying that we need to change wins. At this point, it's literally like a political will by people in power. And I think that's the most disappointing thing about this government is that, there's no excuses anymore. There's like literally no excuses.
Do you think that it's that they, it's purely a political thing where they're just like, look, if we can get away with not spending this money, we want to? Or do you think it's just that probably none of them have ever been on a benefit, at least in the Labour and the government, So they have like we were talking about before, they have no understanding about what the actual realities of that is?
I think both. I mean, I think it's like, and this is part of it being connected, like what I talked at the beginning of being connected to each other's lived experiences, that you don't, having being the benefit, of course, helps. And like that lived experience, of course, should instill in you some of that knowledge. I mean, we got to remember Paula Bennett wasn't the benefit.
I was just thinking that.
But it only goes so far. This is why your political ideology actually matters. So what I would say is that politicians can no longer feign ignorance. Politicians have had multiple journalists presenting them with the evidence, multiple government groups presenting them with the evidence that benefits are too low. You can only kind of pretend that you're trapped in an ivory tower and disconnected from people's realities for so long. And in this case, it's like, it is political will. And like you mentioned, they think they can get away with shoring up votes from people whose lives won't be too severely affected by keeping the benefit system broken.
Yeah, and there seems to be so much focus from Labour on shoring up those votes rather than engaging constituents whose lives could be benefited by being engaged in, which is a big chunk of the public, right? And I guess coming up to this election, how far are we out? 9 weeks?
Less than 10 weeks, between 9 and 10.
And at this point, it looks like Labour's going to have a huge margin over it. National's dead in the water. I guess a real concern for people is I'm sure you'd agree, Ricardo, and we feel this way, is we need Greens to be part of a MMP coalition with Labour, because I just don't really see any real substantive change coming about if it's just a sole Labour Party government.
Look, and what I would say is that if you look at each party's track record, when it comes to giving your party vote and you look at each party's track record, the Greens have been the only ones who have been consistently advocating for welfare reform, and I think that says enough. It's like, for sure, if Labour manages to get in alone, it'll be no excuses. They can't use New Zealand First any longer as a bloc. But, I, at the same time, have yet to see a Labour Party spokesperson saying that they're committing to increasing benefits to above the poverty line. And I think that says a lot. You got to really think, especially if you're a Labour voter, what kind of government you're creating, and giving your vote to the Greens is a way to ensure that we act on these things now. And the disappointing thing about the two major parties is that often they're more concerned about retaining power as opposed to making these changes that make a difference for our communities. And this is where I think the Greens are different, in that they, are actually concerned about these reforms and changes that make a difference as opposed to just power for power's sake. So whether we end up in coalition or in opposition, even a larger Green Party presence in Parliament still helps ensure that welfare is on the agenda, that housing is on the agenda, climate change is on the agenda, because I would hate to imagine what would a just Labour National enact party parliament would be discussing. Probably none of those things.
So with this comfortable buffer that the Labour Party have, is it time for, because I know a lot of people who strategically vote who have a Green preference but will, vote for Labour candidates and perhaps even with their party vote as well, although from what I understand under strategic voting, you give your party vote to the party you prefer and then you vote strategically for candidates. But is it time with this comfortable buffer, is there room for people to just fucking vote with their heart and who they truly believe in?
I mean, look, I'm sure some commentators will label this as naive. I think people should always vote with their hearts. I mean, it's like, I think that it's quite dangerous when we, again, treat politics as this like strategic chess game about winning as opposed to changes. And like, we've got to remember that at the end of the day, politics doesn't end or start with elections. Elections is just a way to send a message about where we stand on issues and about who we elect to run parliament. That's it. Like, it really matters, but that's actually it, right? And so like, if people believe what the Greens are standing for, they should give the party vote for the Greens, because otherwise you're also sending a message to the Labour Party that they can keep their slow action on climate and inequality because they just can get away with it, because they'll just keep getting elected time and time again on a platform of not overhauling a welfare system now. So I think, on the whole, it's even good for those major parties to have voters be voting with their heart, because it actually sends them an honest message about the fact that people are not buying this kind of waffle of middle-of-the-road politics that both parties are presenting.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying before about like not having New Zealand First to sort of be an excuse for the, for the inaction, whether it's like, the capital gains tax or whether it's the welfare reform or the, when Jacinda came out and said that they weren't going to stop drug testing beneficiaries, and everyone was like, and because I criticised that, and everyone was like, oh, but it's just Winston Peters. And it's like, man, they've been doing this shit at least since the 80s. I mean, as long as I remember, like, why has suddenly the parties radically changed, but it's just bloody Winston Peters. If only he wasn't there, that, they would be a completely different party altogether.
And for sure, like, New Zealand First has a conservative stance on welfare, but at the end of the day, like, Labour does as well. And there's been very little scrutiny on Labour's position on welfare reform. And I think the drug testing regime, so this is if you fail a drug test, you get your benefit cut off. And the idea is that if you get punished by losing your income, you will then stop using drugs, which is a accident threat. If anything, it probably will drive you to more harder drugs. So anyway, the thing is that Labour spoke against the sanction in opposition, and then when they got into government, they totally backed continuing the sanction. And so, that raises questions to me about the Labour Party itself and where they stand on issues. And that's quite a disappointing thing.
Yeah, the other week I saw someone saying that, people should vote strategically for the Labour candidate in Auckland Central rather than voting for Chloe there. And I don't know, it's just very, what's the word? Cynical. And like, Chloe's such an exciting candidate. By the way, when she was on the podcast, she told us that you kind of showed her the ropes of organisation and such things. She spoke very kindly about you. But yeah, like, I don't know. Yeah, and I'm the more I used to subscribe to that, like, we got to get Labour in, and I guess it was a symptom of National being in power so long. But just more and more, I'm moving away from that and just being like, whenever I cast votes now, I'm just voting for what I think is right and no longer, I mean, like, and sometimes, and you get kind of set upon by people, you get to kind of be made to feel bad, and you wonder about your privilege, because I'm in a position where if I vote with my heart and it costs, and say it's not going to happen this time, but say National got in instead of Labour and things are worse, I know things are worse for some people, and that kind of hangs over your conscience, and people will hang it over your head as well. But I don't know. I just want to move away from that. And
But you're only like 4 years removed from fucking that shit anyway. It's not like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like when we were doing this podcast the original time, you were on the benefit half the fucking time.
yeah, this is the first time I've.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And the other thing is that in my experience, most of the people that will make you feel shitty about that and call you privileged.
It's not poor people.
Yeah, exactly. It's like bourgeois motherfuckers, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that comes back to exactly what we were saying at the beginning of the podcast, I think, where it's just a game. It's something that you do memes about and you post on your Insta story and you know what I mean?
So speaking of that, what a two-pronged question, Ricardo.
Mm-hmm.
As the 10th list MP, what percentage do the Greens need for you to get a seat? And what are your chances in your electorate? What are we looking at here?
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of party vote, so I think this is just, I'm going to backtrack in order to answer this question slightly. The electorate vote on the whole doesn't actually change the overall makeup of parliament, right? It actually, like in terms of, so for example, if Chloe Sorbrick wins Auckland Central and we get 7.4% of the party vote, we get 10 MPs. If Nikki Kay wins Auckland Central, we get 7.4% of the party vote, we get 10 MPs. This is why I actually really don't like this idea that Labour is entitled to the Green candidate vote, because that actually doesn't even change the overall makeup of Parliament. And I think that's a really, really entitled position by the Labour Party when it comes to that. And so in terms of me getting in, we need around 7 to 7.5 for the party vote, which is only about an extra percent for me to get in on election night.
Yeah.
And when we think about the fact that for 2011, 2014, we got 10%, if we land somewhere between what we got in 2014 and now, totally doable. And in terms of my own chances and the actual electorate to like win it by the electorate vote, I think I'm in there for the long game. I know that it's a race. It's a race that will be contested because in some ways, despite the fact that Denise Lee, who's the incumbent national MP, they're losing ground because their polling is sort of plummeting. Priyanka, who's the Labour list MP in the area, she got a massive demotion in the Labour Party. So it may end up being a bit of a three-way race, who knows? But I think my focus at the end of the day is that if you want me in Parliament, Party Vote Green is like the actual most effective way of getting me in, because we only need an extra percent to get somebody like myself in. And it means I actually get to advocate both at a local level, but also national level on things like welfare and housing, climate justice, etc. So this is why I do tell those Labour Party people who do really care about welfare to, Party Vote Green to ensure that whatever government just gets, welfare is on the agenda. Otherwise, we really, really risk having those conservative people in the Labour Party not doing anything.
Yeah. I think, it's not much, but you pro-secured Dan's vote just by coming on the podcast.
Fuck, Dan better vote for you, Dan.
So
What's going on? He's looking suspicious though.
I don't know. I don't know how many more podcasts are being run out of Onehunga, but it'd be a lot of work to get the good stuff. Good stuff there. In regards to that conversation, I'm pretty sure. I can't cite actual examples, but I think like Green MPs have been under pressure to toe that line of like, if it's a tight race, give your candidate vote to the Labour person.
I mean, we've never endorsed Labour Party candidates officially. To be honest, we've always just been really clear that the party vote is actually what gets us more influence in government and in Parliament. I think it's just more about emphasizing that party vote is where it matters the most, and then candidate vote whoever you want. But I would never endorse. I would not endorse a Labour Party candidate for an electorate seat, because if they don't represent my values, I would feel dishonest endorsing them over somebody who was in the Green Party. And like I said, at the end of the day, the electoral MPs, unless you're a micro party like the Māori Party, who could only get representation in Parliament if they got a seat. Like for those of us like in the Greens or National Labour or New Zealand First, it doesn't matter too much unless we're polling under 5%. And so, vote with your hearts. Would never endorse Labour. I don't think anybody else is under that pressure, hopefully.
It's
Let me know if that's the case.
It's kind of funny looking at this election, if like, because I'm picturing like some sort of graph in my mind, and the blue bar's going down and the red bar's rising, and the green bar is rising, but it's not rising because of the depletion of the blue bar. The blue bar goes down, red bar goes up. Some of the red bar goes to the green bar.
The fuck are you talking about?
Oh, sorry.
I can visualize it. I can totally visualize it. It's fine.
Yeah, you're saying that the Greens are taking votes from Labour.
Yeah, I just said it in the stupidest way possible.
No, but it's right. I mean, and it's true. I think the reality is that, the people who we attract are the people who care about inequality and climate change. And if they're not coming from if they're not already Green voters, yeah, like it's true. Most of them will likely be from Labour. But I also think that we shouldn't underestimate the fact that, just because somebody votes National, has voted National in the past, that they don't care. I think like voting intentions can be really complex. And sometimes, there's working class people who vote National for really interesting reasons. And it doesn't, like, for me as a candidate, if I meet somebody in the streets that tell me I voted National, I think more often than not, particularly if they're from like a working class background, I'm actually really interested to hear why and actually have a meaningful conversation about that. Because so often we kind of assume that only sort of bougie people vote National, and I wish that was the case. Because unfortunately it's wider than that. And some of those people actually care about their families being in warm, dry homes. And some of these people care about their wages and other people's wages. It's just that maybe they've never had a meaningful conversation about politics because, as we talked in the beginning, they've been made to feel like they're not political. So maybe they vote because their parents vote that way or because somebody else votes that way.
Yeah, that goes to issues like abortion, right? It's like none of these politicians actually fucking care whether women can have abortions or not. It's just a stance to take to garner votes from religious people, often working class people.
Oh, you mean people who oppose abortions, you mean? Or
Yeah.
I mean, I would say a lot of people who are in favor of access to healthcare for abortions, like they do genuinely care. And I would actually say that you'd be surprised. There's some people who in Parliament who I mean, we shouldn't underestimate the fact that people sometimes come with really strong religious beliefs into the halls of power. And I mean, that's for the most part pretty scary. I mean, and in some other countries, we've seen what happens when people with really, really strong beliefs around that side of things can end up in taking other people's rights. So, I mean, in the West, I think we've seen that a lot as well recently. And so, but I agree with you that sometimes those stances can be cynical, vote-grabbing stances.
Yeah. I guess just, it's hard to imagine. Because I tried to quiz the National MP in my constituency in New Plymouth, where I'm from, about his no vote on the abortion law reform bill, and he obviously didn't get back to me. But I want to know, I want to fucking.
Did he follow it up?
Yeah, I messaged him through 3 different avenues and got nothing. Yeah, I wish I was I'm gonna ask my sister.
Maybe you should do it in rap form, like into a song.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
What's his name?
No, that's a different guy. It's Jonathan Young.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe Ricardo can hit him up.
If you see him in the halls, tell him there's a DM from me in his inbox that he hasn't.
Louis is trying to get hold of you, bro.
He hasn't opened. But I really want to quiz someone who takes that stance and be like, do you really? Is this about what you're making it appear to be about? Because that's really fucking weird. It's almost more respectable if they'd just be like, yeah, we just say this shit because people will vote for it.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem, right? It's getting a straight answer from a politician is really hard. In fact, they get trained to not give you a straight answer on issues, and that's quite detrimental for our democracy because people end up giving you waffle instead of transparent sort of viewpoints. And it kind of plays into the politics of respectability, this idea that holding a strong political view is something that is not desirable, and you want to talk a lot without saying anything.
Yeah. If you get a seat and you kind of want to retain some kind of aloofness and air of mystery, Dan can PD you on that. Because we kind of like, we've known him for, I don't know, 15 years. We don't know anything about him.
Not a single thing.
So, yeah, so...
I don't even know his middle name.
He could probably train you if that's the route you want to go.
We were considering at one point
PD.
hiring a private detective to try and figure out what the fuck is going on with his life. He was an early adopter of virtual reality, though. That's the only thing we really know about him.
Probably not going to be. I think my life's already a little bit more out
That'll
there.
be on my tombstone.
Do the Greens have a stated or a firm political ideology, or is it an amalgamation of lots of individuals' personal...
Because you seem a lot more radical than a lot of other Green.
He hangs out with those emotional AAP people. The hysterical lefties.
I think with every political organization, you're always going to have a spectrum of political views, right? And I think with the Greens, obviously, we're all in the spectrum of being in the progressive side of things, and the you know, we've got a really clear, when you sign up to the Greens, you sign up to the charter, and so like, you know, we do have clear like overarching values around our commitment to honoring totality, our commitment to social responsibility, ecological wisdom, non-violence. And non-violence, I think, needs to be, you know, unpacked about what that actually means. But, you know, and for sure, like some people may say that I'm more on the radical side of the Green Party, and I kind of own that. Like, I think it's actually okay, because for me, one of the reasons I'm running is to make sure that we're actually doing enough. And often that gets called radical, like actually saying that people should have enough to live with is called radical. And you know what, like, so be it. Like, I'm not too interested in discussing where I am in the political like Overton window. I'm actually more interested in making sure people in parliament are doing enough. And for sure, that may lead to me getting labeled as being more radical than some of my peers. And that's just how it is.
I loved in the now depressing Democratic presidential candidate race, just every time Bernie would be quizzed about being radical, and just be like, is wanting people to have healthcare radical? Okay, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
The term really is used generously to paint people who want equality and people to have better lives as fucking some sort of sickle wielding maniacs.
For sure. And it's many of the tools like we talked about, like labeling somebody as emotional when they're passionate, right? And so part of the toolkit to dismiss people in politics.
Yeah, hard out.
So all your family's in Mexico, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's things been there with COVID and whatever else has been going on?
I mean, I grew up in Tijuana, which is by the border with the US. And I mean, it's like COVID-19 is like hitting pretty hard there, and hitting pretty hard in California as well, which is, you know, just next door. So yeah, I mean, they're in it for the privilege that we have here where we can go out without a mask and not worry about getting COVID it's like a massive privilege. And so, you know, my parents have been basically in like proper lockdown since mid-Feb. And they're expected to be in that situation for who knows how many more months.
Yeah, is coming from Mexico with, and like this is a very outside perspective, but from this part of the world, Mexico and the Mexican people very much seem to be like a political football for United States politics, where they're vilified by the Republicans, and then the Democrats pretend they care about Mexican people. And is that any part of your political motivation, or is that just a nice thing to, like, you know, be in a position now where you have some, I don't know, I guess feel like you have some sort of political platform? And
oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, growing up at the border, it's like it politicizes you because, you know, the physical sort of like landscape of my hometown is like shaped by the politics of like imperialism. I mean, I grew up by the border, like literally by the border, like 150 meters from the border.
Oh, shit.
And, there was a park called Friendship Park, and it was kind of like a park where people would like separated families would come and meet, like separated by a fence, and they would have picnics together. And, as the years went by, successive governments sort of closed down the US side of that park. And so families wouldn't be able to meet anymore. And so like, it's impossible to grow up in that part of the world and not end up, just especially once you move out of there, like just realizing how much, again, politics shapes everything, including literally the land that you live on. And I mean, to me, that's a huge part of my politics. And the anti-immigration rhetoric is obviously a huge part of it because we're not immune to it here. It may manifest different, but it's still coming from the same sort of root.
Yeah. So fuck that story about the parks really fucking, I don't know, it's kind of a horrific thought of families being separated by a desire for, a better life or something better. And I guess going back to like having stakes and things. So when Mueller proudly displayed his MAGA hat, like that stands for so much, right? And I know like it was I think it was very keenly pointed out by Golrers that should not be an intent focus, but it still fucking said a lot, didn't it?
Well, it's a symbol, and all symbols are political, right? And so like you're consciously deciding to carry a symbol of white supremacy and hate, like you can rationalize it and say it's just a souvenir, but it's like, again, everything is political. You're a person in a position of power that is actively brandishing a white supremacist symbol in your office. It's like, I think the whole cut about it being naive is not good enough. And this is the difference, right? It's quite different from a working class, it's still a working class person holding a MAGA hat is like not okay at all. But it's quite different. It's like a weapon held by somebody with power, and that can carry a lot more harm because it emboldens those people that have those white supremacist views. They see a national title leader with a MAGA hat and they go like, sweet, well, if this guy in power can do it, then so can I. And then I can go out in the streets and bash and say horrible things to migrant communities.
If you're gonna,
I think as well, like that, and him reshuffling the cabinet the way he did, it was obviously they were trying to play that white supremacist card. And I think, considering what happened in Christchurch, is so fucking irresponsible, And again, that's another reason why I have zero sympathy for him and whatever the fuck he's going through at the moment.
Bye, Todd.
Yeah.
See you in hell, buddy. Oh fuck! I had something I wanted to touch on.
You had something good, didn't you, Todd?
Yeah, it's one of those moments. No, it's fucking
God. All
gone.
that drinking.
I swear my memory's like an actual sieve now. I used to say that 10 years ago, but boy, I didn't know what I was fucking in for.
Imagine another 10 years.
Yeah, we won't be doing...
Time will truly be a flat circle.
We won't be doing this, that's for sure. I'll be like Joe Biden.
Fuck, I would have said that if you asked me 5 years ago, though. Here we are.
For real. I think that's... Oh, no, I had something.
Oh, here we go.
Fuck. It was going to be the best part of
Ricardo.
The whole episode as well.
The best question of the episode, did you say?
Yeah, I was like, fuck, what?
There's a bit to live up to. Look at Dan, he's checked out already.
So my train of thought was like, ask Ricardo if he has like any peculiar interests or hobbies or habits. I was actually going to message Chloe today. I was like, can you give me some dirt on Ricardo or something to bring up?
I can give you my gossip that I'm going to go out and continue, which is playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm going to be in
Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh shit.
Yeah, I do.
Here we go.
So that's going to be, I've got my crew.
What edition do you play?
It's happening.
Oh God, let's not go there. I
used to play 2nd edition.
I'm 3.5 and I haven't moved to 5th edition, so
3.5.
But I'm definitely, I definitely believe in edition war. So for the D&D aficionados, that's a thing.
It's funny that should be your thing because I think on maybe 2 or 3 episodes, Dom has talked about how he wants to find people to play D&D with.
Oh, Dom, I should have known. We've got to
if you're looking for another player, I mean, I haven't played for about 25 years, but
Send me your CV and I'll have a look.
we actually tried to get a game together with all my old mates who used to play, but everyone was too drug fucked to work out the rules. It was a real disaster.
We can arrange that.
Sweet.
So, fuck. I definitely lost a really good thing I had to ask. But before
Maybe
we
it wasn't that good.
before we let you go, Ricardo, anything you wanted to touch on? Any?
Oh God, not on top of my head. Just
Okay.
big thanks to you for having me. Just
Ah.
thank you for the yarns.
No, pleasure, man. We appreciate it so much. Like I told you when we invited you, I think as the kids say, we stan us a bit of Ricardo
Yeah, no, I
Menendez-March.
love your Twitter presence. I love how on Twitter you're just relentless.
Yeah.
It's like, here's this fact about welfare reform, and here's another one, and here's this about housing. It's great.
Yeah.
Sorry. We stand just sounds so much different when you verbalize it than when you type it on Twitter. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's
I
quite-
stand as well. Thank you.
That's quite a statement to
we
make.
stand
isn't
on
it?
welfare reform in this house.
Hell yeah. So to the listeners, especially Dan, he's listening right now. You can candidate vote and party vote Green in the Maunga Kiki. What do you call it?
Electric.
Electorate. Yeah, that's
Come
what
on,
they
Toby.
call it. Yeah, do that. Get our boy Ricardo a seat. The one he's on, the one he's on currently doesn't even appear to have a back, so he needs one of those. he needs one. He needs one of those big cushy ones in Parliament.
Like fucking Dan's got.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks heaps for joining us, Ricardo.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Sorry it was such a fucking shit show.
Oh, good. It's podcast. Awesome.
Yeah, and let me and Dan know if there's anything we can do to help. Dan can do sound production. I can write left-wing propaganda.
I love it. I will DM you.
All right.
Too good. Thanks, man. Nice to
Take
meet
it
you
easy,
properly.
man.
Kakite. See you.
Bye.
Bye.